Hi, and thank you for tuning in to Noir Histoire. I'm Natasha, and in this episode, I'll be sharing what I've learned about Dorie Miller. Born on October 12, 1919, died on November 24, 1943. Notable sailor, nationality, American. Dorie Miller was born just outside of Waco, Texas, the third of Henrietta and Connery Miller's 4 sons. His feminine name was inspired in part by the midwife who delivered him, as well as his mother's desire for a girl. The Millers earned a living as sharecroppers, and their sons began pitching in on the family farm at an early age. During his childhood, Miller spent a good deal of time hunting with his brothers and developed incredible aim. By his teens, Miller stood 6 feet 3 inches and weighed over 200 pounds, which brought him to the attention of his high school's football coach. He joined the team and played as a fullback, but dropped out of school at the age of 17. The events leading up to World War II were underway, and Miller desired to join the military. He was motivated in part by a desire to leave his hometown and see more of the world, but also because his family was struggling financially and he wanted to help. Miller tried to enlist in several branches of the military, but it would take 3 years before he was finally accepted by the U.S. Navy. Options were limited for black recruits, as they were barred from earning meaningful promotions or receiving specialized training. Most black servicemen were relegated to performing the same types of unskilled service jobs that segregation and Jim Crow attempted to force upon black men in civilian society. Thus, when Miller completed training in Norfolk, Virginia at the Naval Training Station, he became a mess attendant. His first assignment was aboard the USS Pyro, but he later received a transfer to the USS West Virginia. He began his term on the West Virginia on January 2, 1940, and during this time became the ship's heavyweight champion. That July, he was temporarily transferred to the USS Nevada, but returned to the USS West Virginia in August and held the position of cook 3rd class. The USS West Virginia was docked with the Pacific Fleet at Hawaii's Pearl Harbor Naval Base on December 7, 1941. Miller was below deck collecting laundry when the air raid sirens began to sound. He attempted to man his battle post, but discovered it had been damaged. Miller arrived on deck to find that Japanese fighter planes had launched a morning ambush that would leave the ship's crew with 130 dead and 52 wounded. 2 armored bombs and 5 torpedoes rained down on the ship's deck and into its port side, which caused the ship to begin sinking. The ship's deck was covered in oil, water, and fire, and Miller found his commanding officer laying mortally wounded from shrapnel. Taking action, Miller used his size and strength to carry the wounded to safety, despite the harbor still being under heavy fire. Black sailors had been barred from training with or using heavy artillery, yet Miller manned a 50 caliber anti-aircraft machine gun and returned fire. Despite his lack of training, it's believed that Miller shot down between 2 to 6 Japanese planes before he ran out of ammunition and was ordered to abandon ship. Yet despite his immense courage and sacrifice, Miller did not initially receive any official recognition. After the attack, Miller reported to the U.S. Indianapolis, and the story of his actions was first attributed as that of an unnamed black sailor. But picking up the story, members of the black press and the NAACP identified Miller by name and lobbied for him to be honored for his bravery. CBS Radio aired a broadcast that dramatized the attack and Miller's life-saving efforts. Congressional bids for Miller to receive the Medal of Honor were unsuccessful. The House of Representatives Chairman of Naval Affairs believed that Miller's actions were undeserving of the award. This view was upheld by the Secretary of the Navy and congressmen from Texas. Instead, in May 1942, Miller became the first black sailor to receive the Navy Cross, the Navy's 3rd highest honor. Unlike with other sailors or soldiers, military and government officials had to be shamed into giving Miller an award. There was also a campaign to have Miller return to the mainland for a recruitment tour. He welcomed participating in this campaign as it would grant him a brief respite. Once back in duty, he was still working in a similar position but received a promotion that allowed him to move from the laundry room to the galley. In early 1943, Miller was reassigned to the USS Liscombe Bay. A few months later, on November 24, 1943, the ship was attacked by the Japanese. This time, a single torpedo fired from a submarine hit the ship and its various ammunition, weapons, oil, and fuel exploded moments later. The ship sank shortly after the attack. Of the 900-plus sailors on board, 650 were killed. Though his body was never recovered, Doris Miller was declared dead a year after the attack. While Miller never received the Medal of Honor, he posthumously received several awards, including the Purple Heart. Following his bravery, the Navy had also created an officer training program for black sailors. In early 2020, the Navy revealed plans to commission a new aircraft carrier in Miller's honor. The USS Doris Miller would be the first supercarrier to be named in honor of an African American and the first to be named for an enlisted sailor. Thanks for tuning in. Show notes and sources are available on the Noir Histoire website via the link in the episode description. I'm working on creating downloadables and infographics, so keep an eye on the website. These Black History Facts are released every Tuesday, so if you enjoyed this episode and want more, subscribe to the channel, click the notification bell, and check out my Black History Facts playlist.